Next, we'll be bringing to you an interview with the United Nations SDGs Action Campaign Policy Specialist, Laura Hidebrandt, who spoke on the recent move by the United Nations to commission Nigerian hackers to develop an app for Global My Word Survey 2030. She spoke with my colleague, Desmond Utoye.
Okay, you're welcome to the interview session of the Agenda 2030 TV program. And with me today is, please just introduce yourself to us.
My name is Laura Hidebrandt. I'm with the United Nations SDG Action Campaign.
You'll be talking to us about the My Word Survey and the Hackathon Challenge in Nigeria. Could you just take us through all that is all about the Hackathon Challenge in Nigeria?
Sure. Okay. So first, maybe I explain what the My World Survey is and what that's all about. The My World Survey is a global survey by the United Nations and rolled out nationally by partners to understand what people think and what the priorities are about the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, are targeting all of the most critical aspects of our future, from environment to poverty reduction to inequality. And so it's important to us at the SDG Action Campaign that people remain part of this process. They were part of defining what the Sustainable Development Goals were, in fact, through the My World Survey. The My World Survey in 2015 reached out around the world to find out what people's priorities were. A very simple survey, literally asking people, what are your 16 areas, what are your 6 top priorities? And what we did in the UN was we captured all these voices, over nearly 10 million in total, and we fed that back to the government negotiations process to decide what the Sustainable Development Goals would be. What's interesting here is that a very large percentage of those votes, 30% roughly, 2.7 million votes came from Nigeria. And therefore, in a very direct way, Nigerian citizens helped to decide what the Sustainable Development Goals would be. Now, it's hard to understand just how unusual that is for the United Nations and for nation states to actually take people's voices so directly into consideration when they're trying to make a decision about development priorities. And we know from speaking to the people who were at the heart of that process that the My World Survey actually had a very direct impact. In particular, regarding the SDG 16, which is about good governance. This was not something that was originally considered part of the Sustainable Development Agenda, which had a lot of focus on poverty reduction and environment. But people kept saying again and again, a very high percentage of people said that a good government was critical to making that happen. And of course we agreed with them, but because that good governance scored so high within the My World Survey, it is quite clearly had an impact on making sure that that was indeed one of the goals that was adopted. And so that is the My World Survey. Now that the goals have been adopted, we think that it's very important to keep citizens involved in this process so that they can continue to add their voice to the implementation of the agenda and to let governments know how they're doing. And so My World 2030 survey does this. It asks people, are you aware of the Sustainable Development Goals? Which of the goals is of immediate concern to you and your family? And in the last year, has the situation on that goal improved or worsened? And so we really want to capture how people feel about how the government's doing, but also how their own situation is changing over time. And the plan is to have this survey now and to continue to running it all the way up to 2030 so that we can help governments and international leaders understand just how that citizen perception is changing over time. Now, what are we here for this week? Yeah. The last time we rolled out My World in between 2013 and 2015 in Nigeria, it was this huge national mobilization through the National Youth Service Corps. Like I said, we captured 2.7 million votes. You have to imagine the process that was taking the survey to every single part of Nigeria and to rural communities. And so, of course, when we did that, the responses were mostly captured on paper. Mm-hmm. Now imagine, we have to take 2.7 million pieces of paper and feed them into a global database. And so those results had to be transcribed. We had to put into an Excel table.
That must have been cumbersome.
Yes, it took days of people sitting in a room looking at each individual vote and entering the information. Now, we think that we'd rather have people spend their time doing more important things like talking about the Sustainable Development Goals than sitting and transcribing the information. So what we're hoping to do here at the hackathon this week is to tap into the top developers here in Abuja and elsewhere to help solve that problem in a technological solution, probably an app of some kind that may scan the ballots and automatically read the data and put it back into the global database. So what we'd like to do really is to improve the way they're running the My World Survey here in Nigeria. And I might emphasize as well, we're getting ready for this national rollout in Nigeria. So the app is targeting that moment in just a few weeks from now. But the app that we develop here with Nigerian technology will be rolled out globally. So we are looking for Nigeria to help improve our product and our process everywhere we do the My World Survey in the world.
So whatever app is developed here in Nigeria will now solve the problem globally.
That is the plan.
That is big news for Nigeria.
Well, we think so, and we also think it's a good opportunity to link some of those young, aspiring Nigerian developers with some of the technology developers we're working with on a global level. When we then go and partner with private sector to roll out the My World Survey, they'll see the results that have been developed here in Nigeria.
You made it a challenge that ₦1 million is up for grab for whoever comes out as a winner. Yeah, why do you have to make it a challenge, actually?
Well, we think that that's a great way to stimulate thinking. We will have 3 winners today. Today we hear from the hackers. We hear their pitches today at what solutions they've managed to come up with in the short time we've given them. But we know that to develop the solution to a point where we can use it, they'll need a little bit more time. And so we have 3 winners that will come out today, and then those 3 will actually compete for the top prize. Okay. And we think that to do that, they might be taking time out of their other work or their lives, and they need some financial incentive as well to cover that time. And our intention then is to work with that person or that team to over at least the next 6 months or longer to take the solution to the next level, to make sure that it's functioning properly, and to bring on 2nd and 3rd and 4th phases of it to make sure that it's the best that it can be.
So far, you're satisfied with what you have seen with the contestants?
We were very pleased with what we saw. Yesterday morning we had a full-on question and answer with them, where we made sure that they could understand in depth exactly what both the technology side of the challenge and the physical side of the challenge were, and the level, but you could tell by the level of questions that we were getting that the room was really filled with people who knew what they were talking about. Our digital strategy specialist was there. They could speak the same language. We were very confident that the people who were recruited through the government channels and also through the Civic Innovation Lab, who's hosting the hackathon, are really top-notch.
Okay, in the build-up to the post-2015 agenda, that's the SDGs now, you were able to capture about 2.7 million Nigerians in the My World Survey that was organized there. How many people are you targeting this time around?
So this time around, in this round, we're targeting 1 million. As I said, we're hoping that we'll continue to run the survey all the way to 2030. So if we can get 1 million now, that's a very strong signal to send back to the government of Nigeria on how they're doing on the SDGs. But it doesn't also stop at the national level. It's also important to say that those results will then be presented at the United Nations and internationally to set the bar for other countries to follow suit in terms of listening to their people. This is really quite extraordinary what Nigeria is planning to do here, and to support the collection of up to 1 million voices this early on in the SDGs. It really takes, I think, some courage for the government to go out and ask for citizens to respond to that level. It's certainly not the case that all governments are doing this. That's what we're trying to encourage, but in some places, they're really not there yet. They're not prepared to let the people speak in such a public way about how they're doing. So that really, congratulations to Nigeria on that level of civic engagement in this process.
Do you have a target date for both the rollout and maybe the completion of this very first phase?
So we're looking to kick it off with a political launch in the next couple of weeks, around the start of March. And we think the full process for going out, training all of the National Youth Service Corps staff to go out and then train the full Corps to deliver the survey. And then they go and implement the survey nationally and come back with the results. The whole process should take around a month. So let's say we should have results around the middle of April.
Oh, so you are deploying the NYC student?
Yes.
How many of them are we looking at?
We're looking at around 1,500 of them. It's really extraordinary mobilization of youth. It's tremendous opportunity to inform them about the SDGs, and then also for them to go and raise awareness about the SDGs, and this opportunity to have a voice at the international level as well.
And you also intend to train them before they
Yes.
go out to the field for the main assignment?
Yes.
How long will the training be?
About 1 day.
Okay. At the end of the day, what do you expect Nigerians to actually take away from this very survey?
Well,
The ordinary Nigerian.
Two things really. One, first of all, is the basic awareness of the Sustainable Development Goals. We want everybody to know about the goals. That's the very first step towards government accountability. And then secondly, we do want them to know that their voice matters, that how they think the government's doing on the Sustainable Development Goals is important, and that this adds up to a very loud message from Nigerian citizens that will be heard around the world.
Yeah, that's the size of our interview today, and it's been well said that all Nigerians, you have to come out when the time comes to go and participate in this very survey. And we expect that your voice will eventually be heard in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria, and possibly by extension globally. And we also want to say kudos to all the Nigerians that have participated in this hackathon challenge. To be glad to all see that the winners will be able to develop an app that will solve our problem globally.